Whoa.
Oh,
Oh, hi, it's Giana Cicchelli here today with Calvin Witcher to talk about his books, his religious or spiritual philosophy, and anything else that the universe or the spirits guide for us to talk about. Calvin, give us a hello.
hi everyone. Hi Giana. I'm glad to be here, and we're gonna have a fun time. We're gonna talk about so many things, and we'll see, like Giana said, what spirits are going to speak through and with us. It should be
Hey,
fun.
it should be
Hey
fun.
spirits.
So, I've done a little bit of work with you, and we had talked, oh, I want to say it was like a year or two ago, about your religious philosophy.
I think so.
And I feel like maybe it has evolved. So, tell us about your religious philosophy, your spiritual philosophy.
Oh wow. As it is, or has as it has developed into. It's such a weighty topic.
Well, you can do as it is. If that includes parts of how it developed into, then of course include those as well.
Okay. Well, I would say a lot of my work right now is very much a holistic, integrative work, and it really came from years of being in the Christian faith side of things, and really pushing that to the side, working through some things, working beyond that philosophy, and then over the course of what I think it's been about 15 years now, really integrating different philosophies into the mix. And I started with more mystic teachings, so very Kabbalistic in nature, and then moving into other Eastern philosophies as well, so Buddhism, Hinduism, and other traditions, um, more naturalistic philosophies as well. So there's some shamanic things in there. I know you love that. And yeah. And then from there, I would say a lot of my religion and philosophy, while it continues to evolve, it pretty much remains consistent in how do we use all things into and embody those into our experience now, and then allow it to be very fluid moving forward. So it's interesting because it's kind of always a new journey
Yeah,
every
right.
day. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we had talked about this a little bit before, and I remember when I was talking to you, I didn't know you very well yet, and as we were talking, I'm like, oh, like kind of like you're doing kind of like what I do with the whole like eclectic, bring it together, but we also have like besides the Christian background, because I also had the Christian background, we had different like a different journey, a different
Right.
path, but at the same time, that's the beauty of it, right? Is bringing it all together.
And it's really interesting because I went through the phase of really denying a lot of that history and heritage there, and now it's really a full embrace of it. That's my native tongue, as I like to say. So a lot of things, even though I work in different philosophies, whether it's magic or other philosophical terms, I tend to use a lot of my native language because it makes sense to me.
Hmm.
I think we all go back to what's familiar to us, and I think even in the familiarity, there's some power
Hmm.
that works there, and I think even in the familiarity, that's where our faith gets born,
Right.
and there's a breath there. So it's interesting
Yeah.
now.
Actually, yeah, as you were saying that, I'm reminded of this experience I had at Denny's when I was working at
We
Denny's.
love Denny's. Yeah.
And I was working there and I was just starting to learn Wicca. And one of the new servers, she ended up taking me aside, like, yeah, I'm a witch. And I was like, oh, hey, like, let's
Ooh.
talk. And she was like, she had this talk with me where she said, you know, you really have to embrace your Christianity because it was what you were
Mm.
raised in. And that's basically exactly what you said, what your faith was born in. And you have to embrace it because that's where you come from. In order for
Hmm.
it to have a fully embodied magical practice, you
Yes.
can't continue to be rebellious against the one where you hatched.
Yeah, and that's interesting, and sometimes a little irritating as well, if we're speaking honestly,
Yeah.
because I think my moment, my aha moment, as I think Oprah would say, was I think I was in meditation or something, and it was kind of one of those very strong spiritual messages that came through, and it kind of called me on the carpet to say, well, if you believe and teach that God is or spirit is all things, then that must hold true. And so even with your history, even in Christianity or Buddhism or the Quran and Islam, whatever your faith is, or even in agnosticism or atheism, that God is in all things. God is in nature and trees and the wind and the waves, and so to deny any part simply because you had a adverse experience with it
Right.
really denies essence of power that is God. So I had to rethink that, and am rethinking it constantly.
Right.
And that's I would say that sometimes that has been difficult. Now it's easy selling.
Yeah, right. You've mentioned a couple times the how things change, or I can't forget the words you use exactly, but like how you have to,
Evolve.
yeah, evolve and change.
Yeah, sure,
And
sure.
don't you find that that's the process of living this life is that you don't get to have one concrete truth that stays the same all the time?
Yeah, and I would say I have learned to embrace that, and it's life giving, it's powerful, and I will say to the person that is looking for stability and the constancy of life, is constancy a word? I think it's a word. I'm going to use it.
I like it. I
Why
like
not? Sure.
it.
The constancy of life that can sometimes be a very traumatic thought process. I've learned to really say um, embracing their journey is the constant.
Mhm.
Embracing change is the constant. Not knowing, well, it's really interesting because I feel like even in my evolution, there's always a knowing.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, that is the journey, that is the process, and you learn to embody that in everything. I will also say it lets you not hold anything so tightly that it can't morph and transition into what you need it to.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Which I
Yeah.
don't think I had that perspective, or I know I didn't have that perspective on my old paradigm because it
Right.
was always if you prayed, if you wish, if you hoped for something, you had a container that you were looking forward to feel. And
Right.
so if it didn't, then you said your prayers weren't answered. And
Right.
on this side of the tracks with magic or manipulation, however way you want to classify that, you define what the container is. You allow the container to be what it is, and so it takes a different spin and a different face
It's
on this end. Yeah.
I keep hearing let go and let God. It's like
Oh
that
yeah.
requirement that you're not allowed to control, but
Hmm.
in that letting go, you actually are able to manifest. Like yeah, that you don't have the container, so you're letting go, and then it manifests in all the
Right.
different ways that it can. Right?
Right. Now, do you find that you when you're doing your magical working or whatever um, you're creating out, right? Do you find that sometimes you're kind of a little rebellious and you're like, well, last time I did it this way, and last time it manifested this way. This time I'm gonna say like, ooh, can I do something different? Do you ever?
No. um,
She's like,
what?
no, never, ever. I went,
Well, because like I feel like I am rebellious, though. That is my nature to be rebellious, to be a trickster, to be like, but it has never manifested in me thinking that if I try something different, that my magic will manifest differently, and that somehow I can get control on those responses. Um,
oh, that's interesting. I like that.
for me, it's been more of like I do try different things, but that I feel like I always say it's because I'm a Gemini and I need variety.
Okay.
I need to keep things fresh, keep things new. I mean, and also like if something doesn't work, then I'll like go around changing it to tweak it to see if I can like get the right. But usually when things don't work, it's because I'm stopping them.
Okay, that's a good way to look at it.
I'm like, I'm not really ready for this thing that I said I'm going to make, but I'm going to say that I'm doing the magic for it anyway, and then I'm going to blame the universe when it doesn't work.
Well, it's easier to blame someone else, a
Right,
spirit, a spell that
right, right.
didn't happen the way it was supposed to. So that's all, but that's a part of the journey because I think if anything on this end, it has caused me to be a really good investigator.
Right.
And I think it's caused it to be more of a practice than a philosophy. And so and like any practice, whether it's medical field or psychology, you're always learning like, well, I did that, I tweaked it, but even with particular people, well, even in environments and stages and celestial things happening and solar aspects, it shifts.
You hear my cat?
I hear the cat. I hear so many. Today has been an interesting journey. I've heard so many things today. So whether it was a cat or, just something else, who knows?
Speaking of something else, and I don't mean to detract, but I
No,
keep
it's good.
hearing, like, let's talk about angels. Because in some of our talks together, you have mentioned angels and demons. And whenever you mention demons, I get like,
Yeah.
But I feel like then you'll explain it and I'll be like, oh, yeah, yeah. Then yes, I believe in demons. But
Yeah,
like,
everyone believes in demons. You've heard it here first. Calvin Witcher said everyone believes in demons, even Christians. Yeah.
So, tell us a little bit about your understanding of angels and demons, since they're so strong. Oh my God, my cat.
You know what? They're probably just sensing that
That.
fiery Aries energy, and they're just like, "Oh my gosh, it's my time." I love getting and talking with you because it just with that Aries and Gemini energy, it's just who knows what's going to happen. I believe the cosmos were created simply off of Gemini and Aries. It's just the Big Bang was, we did it. Thanks. You're welcome, everyone.
I'm not going to say no. I'm going to say okay.
Hello, just embrace it. But you've hit. This is probably one of my favorite topics to talk about. I love talking about angels. I love talking about demons, and it's interesting. I've always enjoyed angels. I've always had an affinity to angels, and I used to have a adverse understanding of demons. But that was the Christian background. You're taught to love angels, and you're taught to hate demons because they're of Satan and the whole process. And I don't roll my eyes because it's I'm downplaying anyone's religion or philosophy. Really, it's more of a reflection and mirror to me that says, "Oh man, you missed out on so many years of a perspective that really has enhanced how I operate now." So it's different, right? And then all things in its place. So angels and demons, I love it. So my viewpoint of angels and demons really to help people that might not have that shift in their thinking. I think it's really simple. Angels, most people are okay with angels in the traditional sense. Most people think that angels are the good beings. They're the messengers of light. They're the ones that speak as God, through God to humanity, to our species. They have they're seen in almost every philosophy too. So we have a warm place in our heart for angels. Demons are typically the opposite end of the spectrum. They're the ones that cause all mayhem and malice in the world, and all the evil energies that are out there, hatred and malice. Typically, demons are given credit for that. And I think that's two things. And I know you've got some sociology energy in you, so I'm sure you can provide a different perspective. I tend to look at that as human creation or just nature and universe.
Cat is like right here.
I mean, what about me? What about me? But I view that angelic energy and that demonic energy as really one and the same, but from two different perspectives. They provide really a balance of what's happening in the celestial energy realm.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the reality, I guess, and I think also human nature. So from a sociological standpoint, I think we love contrast. I think contrast helps us to understand where we're distinct, where our difference is, where we're dynamic, especially in our divinity. And so this topic really helps with bringing that out. But if you talk about the root of it, so angels, the root on the Greek side is angelos, which simply means messenger. And then demon comes from the root of daemon in the Greek, which simply means knowing, or it's one of the words that's knowing. So some people know the words gnosis, so we know that means knowing. So daemon is also a knowing. So with angels and demons, it's really interesting when you pull it into the realm of magic. The easiest thing the easiest way to understand this is that demons are the parts that we know in our psyche, but haven't yet manifest. We haven't given voice or clarity to or conversation to. It's kind of the hidden parts of us, right? It's the mystic,
The shadow self.
the shadow self. Ooh, love it. And so when you talk about demons, whether you are talking about invoking them, which is or evoking them rather, and really pulling them out. Really, what you're saying on a base level is you're pulling out the hidden parts that you've hidden, that
Mm-hmm.
are your shadow self, parts that have regressed, parts that have been covered up, and you're really bringing them to the forefront or the light,
Mm-hmm.
which is where angels come into play. So angels really give voice to that which is hidden. They give understanding to that hidden knowledge. You need both.
Mm-hmm.
And they provide a different understanding. They work a little bit differently. Demons will typically, it's because it's hidden.
Mm-hmm.
There's a working
Mm-hmm.
towards it. It doesn't necessarily come easy, which is where ceremonial magic comes from, which is where um, just a lot of different tools that we'll say on magic comes from using herbs and processes and sigils in certain paradigms, and it's really to get you to uncover those hidden gems. Angels work a little bit differently. They communicate. So anyone that's ever worked with angels know that angels talk way too much. Right? They talk a lot. And a lot of it is really to get you to understand. Do you know what you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a clarifications. I call it kind of they're agents of clarifying. So
Mm-hmm.
they reason a lot. They cause you to think. They cause you to, when things come forth out of that demonic energy, they help you to understand, is this really what you want? Do you want to know the shadow self?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Right? And I think you do some shadow work there. That's not easy. When you when you I mean, even if you're talking about a demon, whether it's materialized or mental, it's really one and the same thing, because if you talk about a demon that manifests itself in rage, then that rage exists within you.
Mm-hmm.
You can't identify with something or know something unless you have embodied it at some
Mm-hmm.
point or experienced it at some point, which is how we recognize it in other people. You know
Right.
when someone's angry
Right.
because you've been angry.
Right. Right.
You know when someone's arrogant because you've been arrogant. Not you particularly,
No,
because
I, no,
you're
I get.
beautiful. You're wonderful. I mean,
Uh-huh. Right. I can be arrogant. I can be
I mean,
cocky.
you know,
Early
but
in my
all of us.
life, I remember like people would lie to me, and like I would believe it because I was a bad liar, and I didn't understand. Like, you know what I mean? But that's like a little example. I do agree with you. Like we think things, when we think bad things about other people, it's because those are the realities within ourselves that we can't admit to. But we project it onto other people, like, well, they're just asking for money because they're going to go buy booze, and so
Hmm.
I'm not going to give money to people begging because they're going to use it for bad things. Like,
Hmm.
why are you thinking that?
Right.
Is that what you would do? Is because you
Think
would be
about it.
the you'd be the sneaky person stealing money from people?
Wait a minute. Yeah, yeah, that's you. It's a mirror.
Right? Yeah. Right.
Yeah, so that's how and I do different works with angels, and even today I was speaking
Hmm.
and at a church. Interesting enough, right? You know, just he's I do so many things, and I'm seeing angels all around me, and it's this wonderful peaceful energy, and they're kind of being still. They're not really talking, but messaging is not always verbal. Sometimes it's felt, right? Sometimes it's just psychedelic. It's psychological in nature. It's visual and also verbal. So yeah, so there was a host of angels there, and it was beautiful. And I get used to that. And then sometimes I work more on the demonic side,
Hmm.
which is all about what don't we see?
Hmm.
What is the hidden motivation
Hmm.
that we have? So even I honor my friends that work a little bit more on the, let's say, the dark magic side of things, maybe the left hand path side of things, where it is a lot about manifestation, evocation of different spirits,
Hmm.
and people that are generally just getting into it. I like to ease their mind that it's not necessarily about manifesting some entity and that's going to show up and black and has a host of with them and a big old posse. Really, you're just tapping into different versions of your brain.
Hmm.
That's really what anyone that does like ceremonial magic, anyone that does even here's the interesting thing. So sidetrack,
Hmm.
here's a little rabbit trail for you. Um, I did that all the time in Christianity. We did that all the time in Christianity. We just called it different things. We didn't call it magic. We called it prayer.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly.
you we didn't call it praying for the archangel or the angel Raphael for healing.
Mm-hmm.
We prayed to the Holy Spirit. We prayed to Jesus. We recited. We did invocations,
Mm-hmm.
as well. We did sacraments. We call it communion.
Mm-hmm.
We all the same things that happens in different faiths. We did it all the time. We just did it in a different pantheon
Yeah. Yeah.
and a different philosophy. And when you know that, it helps to provide a little bit of humility, understanding,
Right.
um, as well. Even when people attack you, which it happens because people don't understand. That hasn't been their experience
Mm-hmm.
yet. You take it from a standpoint of uh, that is what they need to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
That is what anything that would shift their thinking would also shift their faith, and shifting their faith would shift their results. Which I think we're. I know you. Did you get that?
No, I
You
didn't.
didn't get that? What?
I'm just still listening because I
You're
figure it's
still
all going to
okay.
happen.
Oh, I
It's
love
all
it.
going to come
Just
together for
boom.
1 second.
I love it. And so I think a lot of what we're all seeking for, whether you deal with angels or demons or faith or consciousness or self-development and study, or whether you're just waiting to see what happens, I think we all are looking for results
Oh,
in our life.
yes. And side note, the
Yes.
reason I was not fully getting it was because I was like transfixed on the glow that started happening around your head. Like it's always been there, but suddenly it was like becoming very psychedelic, and I'm like, what am I looking at here? And the angel's messing with me like, wow, dude, like, who am I talking to right now? Because I feel like there's multiple coming through, and then
Uh,
you're like, do you
um,
get that? And I'm like, I'm like, no, wait, yeah,
catch it, catch it, catch it.
there's so much.
There's a ton of angelic energy today. I haven't checked the charts and stars and seeing what's happening, but or maybe it's just me. I have. It's just all day. It's like.
I agree with you that all religions are looking for results. And like, I remember back to I was raised in like the born again Christian where we did the speaking in tongues and laying on of hands. We later went to a more, I forget, what's the people with the tambourines that,
Pentecostal,
okay, so Pentecostal was the first
charismatic.
church that I went to. And then after that, we went to like an evangelical, which was less fervored.
You have a tambourine behind you.
I do. because they have those truths. The truths are
The
still
truths.
there, right?
Yeah.
The calling in of spirits with the sound and with the dancing, the raising of hands. I could go into stories.
Yes.
Side note.
Side note.
Side note. I keep hearing too that like, okay, so we can translate these words into a lot of different things. As you were explaining demons and angels, I'm seeing the shamanic representation of the
Mm.
underworld, the middle world, and the upper world. Now, the middle
Mm-hmm.
world is where we are all the time, and in Christianity, it would be hell, earth, heaven, right? So it's the same, right?
Yes.
So like that,
Yes.
for the demons are from hell, and the angels are from heaven, and similarly, in the shamanic tradition, the underworld is where your traumas reside. It's
Mm-hmm.
where you have those lessons that shadow self that you need to heal and work through. And then psychology, let's just go into a totally academic
Absolutely. Let's
realm.
go. Yeah.
We got the subconscious, the consciousness, and the superconscious. Like,
Absolutely. Freud and the superconscious would totally love this conversation.
right? Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Carl Jung would be like, yes.
Yes. But I would say it's so funny because even we're talking about a lot of different things: magic, philosophy, psychology, ideologies, pathologies, right? It's really interesting because even when you talk about magic, you can't talk about magic, I think, or even religion without dealing with the subconscious or even the unconscious
Hmm.
forms of us, because magic in and of itself, you are doing the tambourines and the raising of hands and the singing and all of the flamboyantness to impress upon the subconscious, which is the unknown to us on this realm, this material realm, to pull out and materialize into our space.
Hmm.
That's all it is. When you pray on the Christian side, when you pray to God, you're praying to God for results. God, heal my cancer.
Hmm.
God, give me the job offer. God, let me feel your presence. It's all results driven. Magic just takes that maybe on a more conscious, concrete level, and everything has significance.
Hmm.
Everything is. I view it very integrative. When you're more on the shamanic side. And so even of the tambourine, that's dealing with our sensory of sound.
Hmm.
It's pulling that in there. There's chanting that happens on this side, and in the Christian realm and other faiths, they sing,
Hmm.
they hum.
Right.
In other traditions, very African traditions, there's a dancing that happens, and it's very elaborate.
Hmm.
And it's very elaborate because it's you're trying to get the spiritual realm to manifest like you wanted to on the natural realm. So you start in the natural realm to then say to the unconscious and subconscious, hey, we want you to mirror
Hmm.
right now. We
Right.
want you to match the energy that we're coming forth with.
Right.
It's so a lot. I love it. I love what you said. It is about translation. It's about, can you translate it into the paradigm that you need? Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And then there's all the truths. They have these like archetypical truths that are there
Hmm.
every religious tradition.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Everyone, and so it's when you start to see that and really know it, it takes on a different body,
Hmm.
if you will. It's a I'm thinking of a scripture now. Is that God created man in His image, and so I think a lot of magic work, or maybe more intentful working, however way you want to classify that, is really about, can you create this space in your image, in that spiritual knowing. Can you then push that out and then change your environment?
Hmm.
That's really what it's about. It's called image inception, maybe.
Hmm. Yeah, I think when you were
Yeah.
saying that, it ping, ping, ping. I was just having this sort of thought meditation the other day, and I've had this a couple times, but it sometimes
Hmm.
comes back in waves. Where when I was much angrier, people who were angry would often interact with me. So I'd have
Mm-hmm.
right. So like,
Yeah.
and then also like there, it's like they were reminding me like whatever you're seeing now that you don't really appreciate is because that's what you're putting out, and you need to recatalog your internal reality and make sure that you're being intentional with your interactions with external reality. So I kind of
Yeah.
like what I feel like what you were saying when you were saying God created man in his image was like an allegory to how anything you create is in your image.
Absolutely. And I think that's the beauty about, um, yeah, the beauty, and that which also gives you a little, it makes you take pause, because
Mm.
you know that everything is in your image. Everything is mirroring what you are, what really resides in you. So it causes you to really be careful
Mm-hmm.
what you're trying to put forth, even in thought form,
Yeah.
because thoughts take a different approach with us. Thoughts are not just, um, I think it was, I don't know if it was Wayne Dyer or someone that said, thoughts become things. It
Mm-hmm.
might have been a Confucius, maybe. But I've had to really reshift that to say, thoughts don't become things, thoughts are things.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
and just because they are not visual does not mean it's still not verbal within you.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as it comes up, it is coming out at some point. So it's very interesting. You mentioned the did you see that shape?
I did.
It was not an earthquake here. It's very interesting that you even say anger. The reason that people even get attached to anger is anger gets you immediate results. Anger, on every level, anger causes people to be truthful. Anger causes you to show your truth, to
Hmm.
speak out what you've been holding in. Anger is a fiery energy.
Mm-hmm.
Fire, it begs and demands to be seen, to be heard, to be experienced. And I know that you work also with the elements, so you're not hiding fire.
Mm-hmm.
This is even the words of Jesus says that a little candle cannot be hid under a bushel. That's a metaphysical understanding that you don't hide fire. So people take that anger and really look at it from a negative standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some unhealthy ways that anger really comes forth, but there's some good things that anger can do as well. If you're going to be angry,
Mm-hmm.
and we all are at some point, channel that energy and that passion into getting results.
Mm-hmm.
Channel that energy into causing those hidden things in your life to really start to manifest.
Mm-hmm.
I will say a lot of manifestation, whatever you call it, answered prayer, um, you know, things manifesting. Um, a lot of it does come down to passion. A lot.
Well, actually, I keep seeing like I feel, and I'm not going to get this right. I'm not going to get this right, but
It's
I
okay. It's okay.
remember there was an alchemical process, and it kind of looks like a lightning strike across the elements, where it starts with fire. So you're very right in that instance. It starts with the passion. It starts with the spark of the fire, but then
Mm-hmm.
it requires each element to manifest. So then, like I think
Mm-hmm.
it goes from like fire to, I want to say air to
Air, I
water
think
to
yes.
earth, and it's
Mm-hmm.
like
Mm-hmm.
so that it like starts with that flame, but then ultimately it has to manifest on the physical realm. So it's working with all four elements. But yes, so I definitely agree that alchemically speaking and like emotionally speaking, the fire brings it.
Mm-hmm.
But fire is passion, so it doesn't always have to be anger.
Right. No, absolutely. And what people really don't understand is that that fire energy, which sometimes is that, let's say, that demonic energy,
Mm-hmm.
because it's that aggressiveness. Um, Let me go self-development for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
In self-development, we would call this force.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you do need to force things to happen in you. You need to get up out of bed. You need to go for that job offer. You don't need to just pray. You need to have some manifestation, some tangible things
Mm-hmm.
that you need to force it to happen. Now, on the other end of that, you have flow,
Mm-hmm.
right? So force and flow work hand in hand, just like the opposite, if you will, or the correspondence to fire is air.
Mm-hmm.
But they work hand in hand. When you have fire in a healthy space and air in a healthy space, that air flame, builds up the flame. It
Mm-hmm.
helps to bolster it. So the fire has significance, the flame, the wind has significance, and together they have a combined energy. And I would
Right.
say this is symbiosis or synergy
Mm-hmm.
at its perfect. It's taking two opposite energies and combining them together. You have a more powerful entity. The
Right.
same thing with earth and water.
Mm-hmm.
Water gives life to earth. It causes things to come forth.
Mm-hmm.
Even with the plant, if you're a botanist, you understand that you can have the best fertile earth, the best seed, and without water, you have no growth.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And it's learning how to blend all those elements together
Right.
in a way that makes everyone significant, makes everyone successful in the whole process. I love it. It's
Yeah.
it's it's fun. I love
Yeah.
it.
Right. Yeah. Right.
It's good. That's good.
I think the reason I keep going back to this is because I totally agree that like the passion and the fire needs to like spark that change. But I remember talking to somebody and they were saying that you need that rage is a powerful place to do
Mm-hmm.
magic, and I was like, meh. And the only reason is because
Yeah.
like sometimes when you do things out of rage, you do them from your shadow self, and
Mm-hmm.
so you are manifesting through jealousy, fear, hatred. Like you're doing it. You're not self-aware of why you're doing it, so you're like doing that like I want to say like an adolescent gut response.
Yeah, like immature,
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
almost. And I agree with you with that too, because I view maybe the rage as kind of an uncontrolled unconsciousness
Mm-hmm.
about people, and anyone that operate, at least from my experience, people that I have seen operate in rage have typically operated in an unknowing. You don't even know why you're angry now. You don't know why you're upset. You're just letting everything happen, and you have a right to be, but you don't even know, like, what are we talking about? It's this uncontrolled forest fire that is burning down acres and houses and changing people's lives, all because you can do it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think now, this is again, I'd love to know your thoughts as well. I'm always very mindful of even magicians or anybody, even people that operate in prayer that do that from a place of lack of control, maybe,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, because I think you lose the regard for humanity and for how it affects other people. And you should always be mindful of what you're creating every time. How does it not just affect you, but how does that cycle back around, come
Mm-hmm.
back to you? But how many people did it leave in its wake,
Right.
like a hurricane? So yeah, maybe that's a good way to look at it. Rage is like a hurricane. It comes through and it did a lot of stuff, but everything is left for somebody else to clean up.
Right. Right.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, and I think rage needs to be defined. And
Mm-hmm.
even anyone I've ever dealt with, even from a counseling standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
I'm always trying to get them to define what the anger, what the rage is, what is the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting because on the magic end, if you're dealing with angels or demons, you're always, let's say it this way. if angels and demons are part of the subconscious or part of different areas of the brain, this is where names become very important.
Right.
I need to define: am I working with the left side of my brain or the right side of my brain? Are we creative or are we, more analytical? Are we dealing with a very malevolent spirit, or are we dealing with, an entity that is more prone to mischief?
Right.
And if so, what's the name?
Right.
So a lot of times, and again, names on the spiritual end, we're dealing with entities, helps you just to know how they're going to work, how they're going to manifest, where are they best used. So same thing with people that operate in rage is, if we can help define what it is that you're upset about, what it is that this energy is housed in, we can help you actually be more effective.
Right.
So yeah, use it, but maybe not use rage.
Right. Yeah.
But maybe define the purpose that you're seeking through that rageful energy. Yeah.
I from what we're
Yeah.
saying, I kind of feel like it's almost like self-aware anger can be a useful tool,
I
but it
like
has to
that.
be self-aware. You have
We
to
should totally
know.
hashtag that. Or anyone watching this, like, self-aware anger is a tool. I love that. Hashtag, witch talk. Hashtag good stuff. Hashtag WFS, or MFS, whatever. Yeah. I
um,
love it.
what do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about what's next
With the world, with us, with
with
what?
with magic. What's next with the community? What's next with the spiritual world? What do the spirits? What say the spirits? Ooh, maybe
Ooh,
that's a good conversation.
what say the
What say the
spirits?
spirits?
All
'Cause
right,
you
I'm
deal
ready
with
for it.
you deal with spirits, and not deal with, like, handle, like, strong arm in the
Can I tell you
spirits.
the spirit situation I had going last night? Because like
Please.
my spirits are hilarious. I still have a fear of spiders. I'm not afraid of tarantulas anymore, but I still have a fear of spiders. But spider is one of my animals that works with me. It's like an ally or a totem or whatever whatever the word is you want to use for
Yeah.
it, right? So last night, I get up in the middle of the night and go to the bathroom, turn on the light, and there is a little black spider in my bathtub. And this is a common occurrence. Not a common occurrence like I'm dirty, like a common occurrence like spiders always show up. And oftentimes in the bathtub, like they're like, hey, what's up? So then like I get out of the bathroom and like a little bit later I turn on the light near my bed and that same spider is up on the ceiling right in the spotlight. Like it's right
Oh,
there. And I'm like, okay,
there's a
okay.
message there.
I know, I'm weaving. I need to weave my web. I need to weave my words.
Yes.
And I need to create. I think they were also letting me know that it's like you're creating in the dream time. By the way, tons of crazy dreams last night.
Oh, good conversation.
Whew.
Yeah.
So, yes, I
I
work
think
with
that's why the angels
spirits.
are maybe present today. There's been a lot of dream activity. There's been,
Right?
and they're trying to get you to understand, or maybe all of us, me included, like, hey, are you connecting now with what happened then?
Hmm.
Which was also
Yeah,
now. Interesting.
that was the message I got where they were like showing me stuff that happened in my past. They had in my dream last night, an ex-girlfriend like was on her way to come visit me for like it was like we never dated the first time, but in the dream I was like we've dated before, like she like we're doing this again. And like she like was on her way but she got lost on her way and I woke up from that and the
GPS.
spirits were like, so if she were to come around again, would you say yes this time or would you say no? And I was like, yeah, like why am I need to work through that? Obviously that's something I need to work through.
Shadow conversations.
Shadow conversations.
Yes.
They keep bringing up stuff from my past and saying, how are you dealing with that now?
Huh. Now that's interesting because I have seen, I don't know with you, but there has been a lot of I like to say it's like celestial activity.
Hmm.
I like to group everybody together because I think angels and demons and archetype and ancestors are all conspiring and working in congruence in different ways. And so I view there's a lot or sense or no, there's a lot of things happening in that third realm
Hmm.
um, kind of standpoint, and it's interesting to see how that's developing.
Right.
It's I have my thoughts.
Hmm. Tell
Um,
me your thoughts.
um, I think slash no, and this
Own
is
it. Own
own
it.
it. Think slash no slash. Well, it's also very interesting because okay. So side note, and I know this happens with you as well. Like sometimes we get things and know things and see things, but we're not understanding or we're knowing that it's for 3 years down the road.
Hmm.
Or we
Like,
get those.
yeah, like
Yeah, go
if
ahead.
that's significant. I don't understand it yet, but I will.
Yes, absolutely. So it's even um, wow, it's so funny because now you mentioned hail earlier, and minutes later I'm connected with a dream I had years ago, but that's a total sidetrack. So I'm not gonna I'm not gonna go there. But I think that a lot of what's happening on the spiritual realm right now has a lot to do with. Let me figure out. I'm translating right now. The spirits are giving me how does it. I know it here.
Hmm.
I'm trying to get how to put it in form. Um, maybe manifest the responsibility of things that we've been creating for years.
Hmm.
Um, I think that we are going to start seeing this material mentalization. I think we're starting to operate in a very integrated way. You know, I'll use integrated. That's a good term. You know what? I think we're gonna start to live in a realm that our shamanic ancestors
Foretold.
it foretold and lived in. I think we're also going to live in the days that were very much a part of Egyptian culture,
Hmm.
where the gods and the human beings were very one and the same. There was an integration back and forth, and it wasn't a story,
Hmm.
as if we call it today. So the things that we call mythology now
Hmm.
were very much everyday occurrences.
Hmm.
That's what I think we're going back to. But I think we're going into I think the world's emerging. That's
Oh,
I say that with all
I like that actually.
kind of mindfulness,
Hmm.
and I'm hoping the spirits aren't saying anything now, so I'm not getting where you shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, right. I know,
So I'm taking pause because I'm like, ooh, was I supposed to say that?
right?
I think we're seeing or and feeling and understanding the merges of the world. I think we're starting to. It's very interesting because I feel some of it's cliche-ish in a sense. I hear the scriptures of in the end times there will be wars and rumors of wars and earthquakes and fires um and that's always been the case. When have we never? I mean, it's kind of like one of those like, is that a prophecy or is that just
Right.
the daily news? But I see it on a lot of different levels. I see this very energy emergence.
Hmm.
I see there's more celestial integration and activity with us. Um, I see that even with people that have been in traditional or are in traditional mindsets are starting now to have very mystical experiences that they didn't ask for, quote
Hmm.
unquote. They didn't conjure up,
Hmm.
and it's just started to kind of seep its way into our society. That's what I think is starting to happen. It's kind of this new world of emergence. Um,
Awesome.
yeah, it's what that means. I have no the hell if I know.
So while you were talking about the worlds combining, I keep seeing like how there are multiple realities, and at the same time, I
Did you see
also
that?
yeah I saw all the
Yes,
circles like kind of,
yes.
and then I also heard like, and there are multiple versions of you. So so make sure that like you make sure to be conscious of the different facets of your multiple person, like the multiple realities.
Oh wow, this
Be
went deep too. I mean, like 5 seconds. But you
right.
know what I just saw and heard when you said that? I heard heard two things, right? They're kind of the same thing, right? Hearing and seeing. Um, I remember I was driving somewhere, and I remember I think my husband was in the car, or somebody was in the car at the time. And I remember looking to my right, and I saw everything around me, but then I saw two other planets that were, I mean, as clear as I see you now, they were side by side, and I said, oh, that's interesting. And then I looked away and I looked back, and it was completely gone. And that was, I want to say maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And I just thought about that when you said that. The whole, and then the other thing. Oh, what was it? Oh, the integration, emergence, and then having our other. I mean, this is all quantum, physics side of things, right? Yeah. You know what I just saw is that our other selves coming into the equation and
Hmm.
then saying, let us create. So even like in the biblical context where uh, God said, let us make man,
Hmm.
it's almost like ourselves coming back to ourselves saying, what do we want to create?
Yeah.
This is very
Whoa.
interesting.
Whoa.
Wow.
Because
I mean,
I'm so like, all right, bah.
wow,
Whoa.
this
So
is
like
good stuff.
in shamanic understandings of reality, at least in the way that I understand it,
Mm,
um, there have always been multiple versions of
mm,
me, and it had to do with like soul parts. And
mm.
like so you lose soul parts in your life. It's like you go
So
to
soul retrieval.
soul retrieval. So
Yep.
you go to get soul parts, but it doesn't just stop at this lifetime. It's also multiple lifetimes because all of time is one time. Like so you're living multiple lifetimes at the same time.
Yes.
And so it has this back and forth. So you get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I get
So
it.
like part of the journey of the shaman is to reclaim those soul parts in those multiple lifetimes so that you can disengage from the fabric of reality and step outside of it.
Mm. Yes, that's really interesting. And when you're saying that, I also thought about something I've been saying for a while, not too long, maybe a couple of weeks. I've been saying the word tether
Mm.
a lot. I've been saying we need to, tether that energy. And so it's very interesting if the worlds are, and I believe they are, and know that they are, kind of in this place of emergence. There's a connection
Hmm.
between the worlds and whatever we're doing. And I think it's happening on an individual energetic level. I
Hmm.
also think here's it. Nothing's happening by happenstance, right? I think there's a collectiveness that we're all coming together saying, we want to be one, we want to be whole, and that's not just a sociological creation. I think that's also more of a self conscious
Hmm.
creation as well. It can't not happen. I guess that's the best way to say it. It just cannot not happen.
Hmm.
So, yeah, it's an interesting thing. I don't. It's interesting to see how that will happen
Hmm.
and unfold. What
Right.
would we do if we or when we meet our other self? The parts of us that we have dreamed about, have thought about, even the parts that we're like, oh, I wonder where that thought came from, and then that thought is now right beside us.
I know, right?
Like what, and also what is the power that we will collectively wield
Hmm.
when that occurs? Because
Hmm.
hmm, we know that in other endeavors, sociologically, politically speaking, even in professional endeavors, we are better together when we are than we are apart.
Hmm. Yeah.
We make things happen. We cause creative change to happen at an instant when
Right.
we come together on a human standpoint. What would happen if and when we do that on a spiritual, energetic level? I think that's powerful. I
Hmm.
think, yeah, I think that's.
I get a couple of different answers. I get like for for
We're like breathe.
people who are not very self-aware, it's going to be a the Tower card
Oh
in the
yeah.
tarot. It's going
Hmm.
to be your whole earth is going to shatter because parts of you that you have never acknowledged as part of your reality are going to flood in a way that you can't suppress them anymore.
Hmm.
But for people who have become more self-aware, it's going to be more just the integration process of
Hmm.
getting to know and yes, coming into this power. Um, I don't know.
Hmm.
I'm tripping out a little bit. I remember a couple of years ago, I went to my shamanic teacher. I had noticed in my personal life, I've done a lot of soul retrieval work with her.
Mm.
And in my personal life, I had started cycling between three specific, like, not personalities, but definitely like traumas. And I knew it because this one smoked cigarettes and drank. And this one was insecure. And like, there were like three very distinctive ones
Hmm.
that were, because there was only three left, they had a really strong pull on
Hmm.
me And so I was like cycling, like every 3 months I'd pick up smoking again. I was like, okay, I feel
Huh.
them, I can feel them. These are like the last three, and because they're the last ones, they've got a significant pool, and I need to take care of it. So I went to her, um, to reclaim some of those soul parts. Um, and it was amazing. Like I
Hmm.
felt it. It was like these three different versions. And once it was healed, like I haven't smoked cigarettes since, and I haven't felt the desire to. I barely drink wine. These
I'll have
things,
yours.
these things that used to really govern me, um, fleshed into one.
Hmm.
And but it was not a that was not an easy process. That was very uncomfortable. Like I felt out of control of myself. I
Yeah, it's kind of
couldn't,
a surgery in
right?
a sense, right? There's a
Hmm.
part that hurts, but then when it heals, it's kind of better
Yeah, of course.
now than it
Right.
was then,
Right.
right?
Right.
And again, I would say some of this is definitely more. I tend to operate more on that prophetic side, which
Hmm.
is
Tell
again
me.
my
Yeah.
native tongue.
Hmm.
Well, I would say it's not exclusive to Christianity by any means. It's in the Jewish faith. Definitely in the Islamic faiths as well, right? And then different um, different there are different archetypes, right, throughout
Hmm.
the different philosophies, right? So I definitely people that are different, having been used to the term of
Hmm.
prophet, it's kind of like psychic work, intuitive work, clairvoyant work. I tend to look at it this way. So people that are familiar with psychics,
Hmm.
I say psychics typically deal with the language of humanity,
Hmm.
right? They're helping you to understand different parts of your humanity and kind of make the connection, right? I think prophets and prophecy kind of is the language of the heavens.
Hmm. Like
I
the
think they
seer.
like the seer
Hmm.
part of side of things, and I think so. Psychics typically work a lot with humanity and that very intimate side of us, and then prophets kind of bring the heavens down to the earth.
Hmm.
So I will say a lot of it, I definitely, with what I'm saying, it seems very out there, in nature, but I think there's some significance there. I think there's some understanding to have there. I kind of view it like
Hmm.
the X-Men factor that I keep look at it in a sense. I think there's going to be a shift in control.
Hmm.
We will always have control, even in this, even as we say freedom, as we say liberation. Freedom comes at a cost. Someone does kind of is a catalyst to that freedom, and then when freedom occurs, someone is, kind of charged to help us maintain our quote unquote freedom.
Hmm.
Even in whatever you want to call it, organization or control, it kind of works the same way. I think we're going to see a shift from the powers that be,
Hmm.
which is right now more driven by the financial institutions,
Hmm.
by political institutions. I think we're going to see that shift in the next couple of years, definitely by the next 5 to 10 years, from more on people that are more spiritually attuned. I
Hmm.
think the control will shift to
Hmm.
that. When you start talking about other extraterrestrial entities, showing in our environment more frequently, and they're already here.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, that's another conversation. They're already here. When we start talking about other demonic entities that don't need to be conjured up to be in our reality, but they are just here now. When
Hmm.
we start having our thought forms to manifest in now reality, it takes on a completely different energy. Can you imagine what it would be like to say, you know, oh, I wish I was $1 million, and all of a sudden $1 million just magically, instantly appears in front of you? That's power.
Hmm.
And magic, again, if we went back to that, we're always looking at process,
Hmm.
you know the process of time to really bring things to our existence. But if we were able to cause time to stop and to not even be a factor, imagine the kind of power the kind of power that we really have there. You would need someone to help to harness that. If we or when we start operating the other parts of our brain that are telling us that gravity exists, we have to walk on the earth.
Hmm.
We can't fly because that's what birds do. If we remove that regulator,
Hmm.
if you will, and started floating,
Right.
and started levitating and started saying, well, there's nothing off limits, our world will shift.
Hmm.
Our lifestyle will shift as we have known it. And it will, our education, our churches, our synagogues, temples, covens, societies will shift in order to make way to this new energy and entities that are coming forth, it's going to be a completely different experience and not one that you're going to get from a book.
Actually, yeah, you know what you're saying literally is like I'm hearing the words of another friend I was talking to about a month ago, and she was saying she's been having this vision for a while now where the educational institutions are going to be moving more towards not books like books, but experiential knowledge, that
Experiential.
they're
Yep.
bringing together the knowledge, the philosophical knowledge
Hmm.
with the interaction with that knowledge on the physical plane. So like experiential and philosophical coming together, and that's going to be the new educational paradigm. And I swear you just said something very, very similar to that. I'm like, whoa, whoa, yeah, all right.
And so it's interesting to be. It's fun. It's interesting. Sometimes intimidating
Mm.
to even be on this space. And I will say sometimes I think when you operate in between the worlds, sometimes you feel like you're just always in this displaced destiny, for lack of a better term. And so I'm looking forward to what's happening. I am definitely, you asked earlier, like,
Mm.
what's my religion? What's my philosophy? What's the spirituality? I'm putting it, even in the evolution, I'm putting it into a materialized form that hopefully it's going to be practical in nature. Because I will say there are some, even as I say that, even though it's very free flowing,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's some tools.
Mm-hmm.
There absolutely. I think there's some concreteness into consciousness. I think there's some practicality to the power that operates in the unseen world. And I think it's just a matter of continually, tapping into it and seeing what is it.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you talk about spirituality on this realm, the esoteric, mystical realm, we are all operating in this experiential scientific realm. It's
Mm-hmm.
all alchemical. It's
Mm-hmm.
all science. We not all of us understand the makings of it, but when okay, someone has a headache and you get some herbs or you get some lavender or peppermint and you start putting it on the temporal lobes, and there's some chemical processes that are happening there. Are we scientists? Are we?
Actually, this is a theory, or something I've been saying for kind of a long time, where I'm
Yeah.
saying magic actually does follow logic. Because people are like, oh, magic is so illogical. And I'm like, no, no, no,
No,
there's a logical equation to magic.
it's an
Once you
equation. That's good.
understand once you understand the foundation of how magic works, it's math.
It is. It's absolutely math.
and then and then you just work within that paradigm. The reason people don't think it's logical is because science hasn't proven it. But
Hmm.
science, it's like science believes it to not be real, so they won't prove it.
Absolutely.
But we all know that plants talk. So
Absolutely.
like plants have the energetic field, so it's and their energetic fields are all different, but they interact, and you utilize the energetic field that has a specific frequency to work for a specific outcome. Like it's actually
Hmm.
math. You have to learn the logic of magic for you to understand how it works.
Absolutely. And it's so funny because a lot of, even as you're saying it, I'm thinking, is there anything on the magical esoteric side that doesn't incorporate math? And I'm like, I don't. I mean, there's this interesting silence, and we're like, no,
We
I
might
don't
not
think.
I don't write down math equations. I can feel it's like baking. It requires math. You need a certain amount of flour to this, and if you don't put the math in right, your muffins don't rise or whatever, right?
Right.
It's the same thing with magic. Like you feel the different, like how much of the lavender do I need? How much of this? And you can sense if it's the right mix and if it's
Oh, you know
not.
what? Here's the funny thing. When you said that, I got a visual, right?
Mhm.
Because I'm very,
Yeah, yeah,
prophetic visual in
yeah.
that nature. So here's how I kind of always look at the science and the spiritual world, because I think they're both in the same. They have different perspectives and processes that
Hmm.
they work off of. I remember my grandmother, who is probably in the room with me somewhere, and saying all kinds of cute stuff, right? Because she's transitioned on into a different existence. And so, she was always, she was not a chef by any means. She was a cook. She was very good at what she did. She never wrote a cookbook on that regard, because when you operate with a cookbook, it's very scientific.
Hmm.
It is 2 pounds of flour, or,
Hmm.
two tablespoons of this, and, it's very calculated
Hmm.
to bring out the cake. Now, my grandmother, she's very, very, very old school. She never operated like that. I didn't learn to cook like that. So it was a smidge of this and a touch of that, and just kind of a bushel of this, and just go out, and pick a couple of this, and you put it all together. And how long does it cook? Oh, you'll know when it's ready. You know, you'll know. What does that mean? Is that an hour, 45 minutes? You'll know when it's ready. It'll let you know. And that's how I grew up. So even on a very practical, even agriculturally speaking, that's how we kind of understood when it was time to pull certain crops. You just kind of knew.
Right.
That's to me, that's spirituality
Yeah.
101. It's
Yeah.
like you just kind of know. There's
You
this
trust your feelings rather than the calculations.
the calculation. Now, can we give someone those kind of ingredients or understanding and then say make an equation out of it? Absolutely.
Yeah.
We have cookbooks.
And there's books. Yeah.
And there are
There's
books
tons of books.
to
There's
it.
all kinds of books that tell you just how much to use.
Absolutely, just how much to use. So even it's so funny. That's how I was even able to transition from Christianity, even with demons and all these magic, because you would never say magic on that side of things. You would just never, not in a good way, to how I am now. It's like, well, it's so funny I say it there because I'm always like, oh yeah, preachers are magicians. They are great magicians. They've got an awesome grimoire. They call it the Bible. It's excellent. On the end, so that's how I look at that scientific and spiritual world. I think if someone has a cookbook and they make a great cake, and someone just needs to know you need a smidge of this and a smidge of that, and you feel when the timing is there and when it's not, and you go at it. So, yeah, and I think those worlds are combining, starting to integrate, and I think we're going to have those scientific or analytic mindsets that are starting to understand here's the science behind why angels show up at this time. And I think we understand that sometimes on the celestial end, right? Because there's, when you're dealing with, more solar magic, right? On that end, are you good? Are you with me?
The air conditioning turned off, so I can hear you now. It's like, but now it's good, so we're all good.
Sometimes I wish I had long hair like you. You have beautiful long hair. I could just kind of, let it flow.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
So yes, I think the worlds are uniting and joining as we speak. I think we are uniting and joining as we speak. I think that parts of us that are in beyond galaxies and in different realms that we know not of physically, but we sense energetically. I think and know that they're combining with us. And I think what's the practical application of that, right? Because I like to be very prophetic and out there, but I also like to be very like, how does it help me today? I think a lot of the thought is really to say, how is what I'm doing serving me now? What can I learn from these different experiences, these different things that people are talking about? How can I utilize what they're saying and translate it into something that I'm already doing? How can I see myself in a process of ever evolving work? And I think through that, I think it causes us to not. It's really interesting because I'm even reshifting this concept of transformation as well, and even change, almost to the standpoint of nothing is changing, nothing is transforming as it is expanding. Maybe.
I saw a flower like blooming.
Yeah, we're so there. So is the bud transforming into a flower?
Or was it always a flower?
Or was it always a flower in a different form?
Yeah.
And your transformation that you see is really the beyond the form that I have put together in my mindset. That's what all metaphysics is. It's just beyond what we see, beyond what is tangible. So I think we're at a point that we're starting to see interphysics. Maybe that's a really good term. I should
interphysics
totally coin that. So I think we're going beyond the physics of what is now, and even beyond the physics into a place that we merge both of those together into this interphysics realm. You've heard it here first. I want to go on record.
It's here. It'll be
Calvin Coin interphysics. I love it.
All right, that's awesome.
That's beautiful. That's good. That's so good. I want a drink of water.
All
Oh yeah,
right. Well, we're winding down. So if there's
writing it down.
anything else you wanna come out with it.
Well, thank you. I would say it's so fun knowing you. It's so knowing you and knowing you. Yes.
I
uh,
agree. The
it's
feeling
been
is
a journey.
mutual.
I feel like you're, my sister from another mister. And ooh, yes, and it's so funny. I feel like we've known each other forever,
I know,
and
right?
it's like, oh no, it's been maybe a year.
Yeah, right? We've known
I
each
think.
other like I feel like we spent more time together in the last couple of months because I moved to your neighborhood.
I.e. stalking. Everyone loves a stalker.
I can remember, but otherwise we maybe like talked like I swear like maybe 5 times max,
I,
and that
I
but
feel
like
like not even that.
and every time we touch base, it was like I knew you, and so
I
we
knew
would
you.
just like nothing was off bounds. We're like
Absolutely.
let's talk about this.
Yeah. So I thank you. I honor you. I respect you. I respect you tremendously. I'm always talking about you. Your ears are probably always on fire. And ta-da. And no, thank you for the work you're doing out in the energies and the earth. I love it. Thank you for everything you bring to the table. I am looking forward to more of that. I am looking for that powerhouse that is Giana Cicchelli to come out. And it's very interesting. You, my dear, are the ones that will be written in the history books to say
Oh.
that Gianna was the pioneers in this particular area. So I look forward to it because I know you teach it now, and people will be talking about you later, and you'll be in a different realm and space. Actually, interesting. Based upon our conversation, you'll probably be right there with them saying, "Yeah, that's me." Ta-da. So thank you, and thank you for the platform
No, thank you.
as well to always speak and obviously get the message out. Anyone that is listening or to this audibly or seeing it visually, thank you for your attention and sharing this space and this time because it was, um, I guess you're looking at it and saying it's then that we did this, and it's your now, and it's our now, and it'll be the then when you watch this. So, but we're all together and connected, and that's the beauty about what we're doing. And I just encourage you that if you're in a traditional faith, you don't have to abandon that recklessly. And then rage, you can totally integrate that into your philosophy, your interphysics side of things. And then embrace some other things that resonate with you. And if they don't resonate with you, that's okay. That's fine. And then thank you for joining us through this process. What else? Oh, if you want to stalk me, I love stalkers again. If you stalk me, please bring Oreos. I love or red wine, Oreos and red wine. If you come physically, but if you come in person, I mean, well, if you come in person, but if you come online, you can go to my websites, calvinwitcher.com or actually calvin.tv. I have that too. Great for
Nice,
domain. I know,
nice.
right? How'd you get that? Yeah, so all of my information is there. I love it. Gianna mentioned one of my books. That was a parenting book, self-help for parents
You have a
side of
new book that
things.
just came out?
Oh, yes, I just finished that this week, actually. That's 150 Days of Peace. And even as I say that, I'm like, wow, that's long. That's a lot.
That's a lot of peace.
That's a lot of time. But there is scientific research
Mhm.
that goes beyond or goes with that. There's a research that shows that to break a habit and to start a new one, and again, this it shifts and changes for everybody, right? Because we're different beings. But we used to say it took 21 to 30 days to break a habit, start a new one. There's actually research that shows that it takes about 66 days to about 254 days to break a new habit, start a new one. So
Mhm.
I kind of sandwiched that and broke it in between and said, you know what, let's go with the 150 because if it takes 66 days, then we're going to double it and you'll have more power
Mhm.
behind you. And if you're at 254 days, we'll just kind of say, we'll meet in between, meet in the middle. So it's 150 days of peace, and we talk about more things than peace, but it's about being productive and how do you find a healthy, abundant balance between clarity and productivity and power. And so I use some quotes from a lot of wise people. I write some paragraphs on them. It's kind of a devotional mixed with a journal, and then helping people to transform themselves into a different existence, at
Yeah.
least mentally. and materially
Hmm.
and over the course of 150 days. So you can check that out on my website. What else? I'm writing a third book now.
Yeah, I know you are.
That's good. I probably shouldn't get the title out because it might change, but it's on boldness.
Yeah.
So how do we live in a way that honors the divine purpose we came forth in this existence we call humanity? So that's next. Working on a philosophy, which now that I said it, I think I just named it, maybe, uh, as well. And then, yeah, that's what's going on. So you can see it on calvinwitch.com. And I've got some other things working on that spiritual end. If I happen to go by a different spiritual name, I'm sure you'll still be able to find me in some form or fashion or name.
He's got an amazing mailing list. So if you go to his website, make sure to sign up for the mailing list because your emails are always transformative and beautiful.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Definitely, especially coming from you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And I also want to extend thanks. Thank you for being on with me. And also thank you for being such a beautiful soul, for being that person that needs to bring these teachings and for standing in those teachings so just boldly. You are a force of nature and you're beautiful and you're bringing the truth to the people. And I thank you for that. I have immense gratitude for you and your life's journey.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We say love and namaste and greetings and peace and all things good.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.